Hey everyone, Margarita here. I'm going to film this episode today on numerous different things. I'm going to kind of give a recap of everything I've been talking about on my channel and the different subjects and the different matters I've been talking about, because in the end they actually all tie together. So another thing is, I know the thumbnail showed me with an ear candle in my ear. I will get to that as well. That is one of the methods that I use to help remove some of the neurotoxicity and the buildup of the different gases and toxins that from the initial overload, and that I intake along the way, the additional particles I intake along the way as well. So I am going to get a little bit more into depth about that. And there's several other things I want to mention. Because it's going to be really hard for people to understand why there's so many videos, why I have to talk about so many different subjects, and like how it all ties together in the end, because it is all truly connected. And I also don't live a normal life. I never did. I never have. So I guess we could start with that. I was always an only child. Even though my parents are still married today, there's numerous reasons why there's only one child. And part of that has to do with the ongoing crimes and the nature of my mother's undiagnosed mental and personality disorders, mixed with all of the jealousy and envy as well. So that's one of the reasons for that. And due to everything, how it all went with me growing up, what I went through as a child and a teenager, and me starting working at such a young age, that's how I ended up purchasing my first home at age 18, once I had been at the same company for 2 years. And I stayed with that company for 5 years, actually. So I did have stable income at a very young age. I was making about $1,000 a week right off the rip to start at a pretty young age. And if I did not make that at one job, I most likely had another form of income or numerous jobs at the same time to produce that. And it's always been that way, if not more than that. So that started as a teenager. And I know most people out here, or who are viewing my videos and heard about me through my parents, or someone who doesn't actually know the real me, it's just the delusions that have been being passed around. And that's what people are operating on or believing to be real about me. Nobody understands any of that, because I removed myself from my parents' home at age 18, cut my mother off immediately, and her entire family, walked in the opposite direction, and did not have contact with any of these people for over 20 years, including my mother. There was no direct contact, no relationship whatsoever, a passing from time to time, and that's only because we maintained a relationship with my dad separately and they remained married. So that's part of the confusion on what people have been believing all of this time, all of these decades, not knowing anything about me or anything that has happened to me. And that was also part of the reason I had always kept my life private as well, on top of the fact that I spent 20 good long years working very hard. I was always very busy. I had 2 kids at 18 and 21 right after I bought my first home. So I didn't really have time to be doing anything else. And when social media came out, I was still in that mode of working that hard and spending the majority of my time building and providing at such a rapid rate. And I also thought social media was very odd. I immediately thought, why would you want to put your personal information out there like that? And I never partook in that type of stuff. And now today, because now I've mentioned in a couple of videos that I've known all along that I was going to be filming these videos about 6-7 years ago, it was a matter of getting myself a certain degree healed and things in a certain order, so that way I can begin to film these videos. So I've known. And I've known that there's been delusions being passed around about me longer than prior to my injury 7 years ago. So, I knew I was going to be filming all of this to clear my name and to get the truth out there and to help get the ongoing crimes and certain people involved arrested for their involvement in the crimes. I'd known all along that that's what was going to be going on. So, you know, here I am now. It's taken me some time, but here I am now explaining everything and going public with all of it. It just took a very long time to get there. So I guess what I'm going to start with here is what it's like living with a life-threatening condition, chronically sick with 5 brain injuries, all untreated from the initial medical emergency. And the 20 years prior to that, I had no medical history whatsoever, was not a part of the medical system. So that's all pertaining to the crimes and what my mother had done as a Beaumont Hospital employee, and what the place who had caused my injury had done as well, because then they covered up what they were doing. They covered up the fact that they had even caused my injury, and then refused to remove me from the environment when I was already overloaded with carbon monoxide, near death, and that made it even more extreme. And I'm not even sure how I lived through that, because that's not normal for someone to live through that, to that extreme degree of carbon monoxide poisoning, especially with the brain injuries. And now that everything has played out in the workers' comp court system, which is all fraudulent, I'll get to that in its own set of videos, because I will expose their whole corrupt system. But, you know, nobody's had to pay the price for what has happened to me, not financially, you know, not physically, none of them. There's a lot of people involved, so I will get to that in their own videos. They do have a lot of bad karma coming to all of them because of the extreme circumstances I was forced to go through and the permanent injuries I'm stuck living with. So, you know, I have some serious issues going forward. That's going to be the rest of my life. And I live that way. It doesn't go away. We're talking a little over 7 years from the time my injury became very extreme where I am today. So a lot has gone on from the time it became extreme, from the time the first injury happened to the time it became extreme almost 2 years later, and where we are today. There's a lot that has gone on. Because initially I was completely incapacitated for about 3 years, and then extremely fragile for about another 1.5 years. And there was many other very serious re-injuries, numerous more brain injuries, and other near-death experiences once other incidences began to occur just after I had shortly after I crossed the first threshold, not even knowing if I was going to live or not for the first 3 years once it was extreme. So there's a lot of people who are responsible for those circumstances in my life, which have then led to the results of where everything is today and how extreme it all still is today and how serious it all is today. All of those people and agencies are involved in why that is the case. Now, you know, I did the thumbnail where I showed the ear candle coming out of my ears, because I've not talked about the extreme part of my injury yet, but or the manner in which I go about removing some of this stuff from my system. Ear candles are a part of how I remove some of that from my system, and I will get into that in its own set of videos, but ear candles are a major way of how I have to go about removing some of the stuff that I take in. Because what the problem is I had a 4-hour brain swelling episode and then was dead in my bed for 4 hours. So the entire brain exploded internally. And because I went back into the building, at no time should I have been standing, working, walking, nothing. And had I not done that, I would not have discovered that it was the place that had done it, because when I did that, everything had came out at the place that caused all of this. By doing that, it disintegrated whatever was left of the blood-brain barrier, and it had exploded the blood-brain barrier initially from that incident, from that 4-hour brain swelling episode. And that's not normal. People don't generally have their entire blood-brain barrier explode, and if they do, they certainly don't live to talk about it. And if they do live to talk about it, most likely they're in a coma long-term or for the rest of their lives. So just to kind of give you an example of that, this is a normal human being's body with their blood-brain barrier intact. With the cap is the blood-brain barrier. It's all intact. and their human body and their brain stay clear like this all the time, because the blood-brain barrier is that acts as a filter. It's imagine like a hairnet being over the top of it, and that's the filter that filters out all toxins, chemicals, and gases that one takes in their system. So if that's all intact, a regular human lives this way without anything getting into their brain or body. It just gets filtered out with no issues. Now with me, after that happened, it was like this. It stayed this much was loaded up into my brain and my entire body. So you can also view the video where I show an example of what it's like living with a compromised blood-brain barrier. I did that, I believe, about a month ago, so you can scroll back and look at that as well. And this is what I stayed like for a little over 3 years, with it being that extreme, with that much loaded in my brain and my body. Now, where I am today, because you got to think most people did not know me or talk to me or see any of this go on. Again, normal person system. Now the blood-brain barrier is completely blasted away. Every particle of any kind that you come in contact with from that point forward, since there's no blood-brain barrier left, enters the system and loads. Without treatment to remove it, everything just loads and loads and loads. And it's also cutting off all oxygen, because your oxygen's also cut off by the carbon monoxide. So you're also living in an altered state of consciousness from that. And then this is all loading up, and without any treatment or any ways to remove it, you stay this way. It doesn't go away. So any little bit that gets added, not only are you already incapacitated, but you become even more, it becomes even more life-threatening, where you're just barely hanging on by a string, barely alive, trying to stay alive through each minute of each day, which is how I remained for about 3 years. Literally could not do anything. There was, the majority of that time, I was fighting to keep myself alive through each minute of each day. That's what I spent the majority of my time doing. Now, where I am today, and where I've been the last few years, since crossing the first threshold and a couple other thresholds, it's more like this, with this bottle. Because the blood-brain barrier has, because I've been through treatment at this point, several, about 6 years of treatment at the center, 2.5 years of everyday treatment, another 1.5 years of twice a week. And I did maintain treatment. I knew I had to maintain treatment the entire time, which is going to have to be for the rest of my life. It's going to have to be that way, and my son as well. Otherwise, we don't live. It has to be, you have to be able to remove what you're taking in has to be able to be removed regularly in order to just go about some type of modified version of a regular life. So this is about where it is today and where it's been for the last few years since crossing the first threshold about, maybe 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. So, regular people walk around like this. They're totally fine. I do have some of the blood-brain barrier repaired. It's not all the way open, but it is still open in some parts. And we still have to live modified lives, and we can't knowingly take in particles of any kind, gases, chemicals, spills, explosions, any amounts of carbon monoxide, just driving from point A to point B. There's many vehicles that pump off large loads of carbon monoxide in passing. And we have to drive a certain way in order to avoid that. And sometimes it's hard to avoid, or we have to hold our breath for certain periods of time, or try to drive off and get away from the situation. I do know that after COVID, a lot of the vehicles, it changed a lot, because then there became less traffic and the vehicles were being made differently, where there was even less carbon monoxide coming out of them. But it is still a problem. It does still happen. There's times we can take trips and we don't come in contact with any, but there is times where there is very large bursts. And even if we take in one breath of that, I become unconscious and incapacitated shortly after. Sometimes I can't even make it to where, depending on how far I drifted off to, sometimes can't even make it back to where I need to go or make it back home, and I have to pull over and just fall in and out of consciousness or sleep for an hour or two, and there's nothing I can do about it because my whole system overloads. It gets taken over so fast. That's why it has to be 100% avoided. Now, I do carry an up to the second detector with me the majority of the time, depending on what I'm doing, where I'm going. But the first, I'd say 4 to 5 years, I carried it everywhere I went, literally. I could not go anywhere without it, not even starting my own vehicle. because we literally just could not even have one breath of 1 part per million at that point without becoming extremely ill or unconscious immediately. So I am aware of how it all works, where it all comes from, how it all disperses, the different sources of it. I will get more into that in its own episodes, its own few series, the categories I list of the different subjects I talk about. I will get into that because I'm very well educated on how all that works, how it disperses, and then, how much one could take in potentially, depending on your age, your size, and there's different factors involved, but I will get into all of that. But yes, this is what it's like living the way I'm forced to live currently. It's been, and it was like this for the first 3 years. But again, when it was like this for those first 3 years, pretty much nobody ever saw me because I was completely homebound for 3.5 years. Nobody ever saw me. And it ran right in with COVID as well. So no one saw me. I've never really had a support system my entire life. I've always been my own support system. So when that happened, there was definitely no support system really, and the people that were around me were being manipulated by my mother, and everybody was screaming delusions in my face when I could not have sound. And then I was forced to scream back and couldn't have the sound of my own voice, and it was causing my brain to not heal and causing further issues. So that's what was going on the first 3 years when I was stuck like this. Again, the majority of that time in and out of consciousness, 50, 60 severe symptoms at once, living sick by the toilet 8, 10, 12 hours a day, nothing I could do about it, can't get anywhere, can't get from point A to point B, shouldn't even be standing or driving. And at that time, I did have several inches of space between my brain and my skull with numerous knots of carbon monoxide loaded up as well. And the back left side of my brain was sagging at the same time that was going on. So it took those 3 years of treatment to clear those knots, to clear those spaces in between my brain and my skull, and to clear the bulk overload of what was in my brain to get it to here where it's not so extreme, but it's still a serious problem. So once any little bit gets added to it, it becomes very serious very fast, very life-threatening very fast. While the rest of the world walks around like this without a problem. So when I try to explain this to people, they either think I'm over-exaggerating, they think I have a mental disorder based on where they get their information from, because if somebody heard about what happened to me or what I'm talking about through my mother or people who know my parents, most likely they have false information and they're believing that nothing had ever even happened to me, or that I have a mental disorder and I've always had one, or they don't believe that somebody could be that severely injured or that severely sick and just be walking around and not at a hospital. But no one's understanding that my mother has Munchausen by proxy, numerous forms of it, and was a Beaumont medical system employee for 45 years and was still working at the beginning of our injury and had entered false information into mine and my son's medical files using other employees to do so. Making sure they put in there that I'd always had a mental disorder and there was no injury, which she knows nothing about. She was a very low level employee, never made more than 30 grand a year. The majority of the time she worked for Beaumont for those 45 years. And no one can comprehend why I wouldn't be at a hospital if I'm really that severely injured or that sick, with the type of injury that we have and how extreme it was. And we're treating this as an outpatient situation when it's actually an inpatient injury. We're treating it outpatient and being homebound and living modified lives, being very limited on where we can go and when. And that's how I got us to where we are today. That's how I kept us alive, and that's how I got us to where we are today. But people have a hard time believing that because everybody's under this illusion that if you're really that injured, you just go to the hospital and get treatment, and that's not the case. If that were truly the case, I would have been in the hospital for years. So would have my son. And that's just not reality for us because of the manner in which everything had played out for us. So it's really hard to explain to others and get others to understand what had all happened to us to get that extreme, or where we are today with all of this, especially because nobody's seen us during the time it was that extreme. The first 3 years, 4 years, maybe, we didn't really have contact with too many people that entire time. There's very few people who did see us during that time. And others just can't comprehend it, or they want to believe I'm a lying sack of shit, which is not real at all. So I am the only reason we are still alive, and my life's work prior to the injury, and the fact that I've been self-employed for a very long time, and the fact that I'm 100% self-made, self-built. That is the only reason we are alive, and the only reason I am able to maintain things and keep things running in the manner in which I am. Now, it is an issue maintaining things and keeping things running because, again, no proper support system. And I no longer have anyone working for me. From time to time, I do have some contractors here or there, but it is me running everything myself, still generating 100% of my own income. And the injury itself and my mother's crimes and the crimes of the large agencies and people she's used along the way have participated in playing a role in making sure my income stops for periods of time, or gets disrupted, or the longevity of each form of income that I have about to be running or already running gets disrupted. And she manages, using all these people and agencies and herself, it manages to disrupt every single thing I'm building and involved in. And so it makes it 100 times harder. There isn't another individual out here dealing with something like that, where you have a mother, especially somebody's mother, in the background, and other people and agencies making sure, intentionally preventing someone from building their life and continuing to be able to provide, and keeping them alive, living with a very serious life-threatening condition. Because once those particles that we come in contact with enter, or if there's a large spill, that takes over our oxygen, because we're overloaded with carbon monoxide, which is already blocking our oxygen, and our brain tissue is open. So that's why there's so many significant re-injuries and re-exposures causing some serious damage, because there isn't anybody out here dealing with that. Nobody's dealing with something like that, or they work for other people, and they don't know what it's like to juggle everything and maintain everything on their own and be 100% in control and in charge of their own income and making everything flow. It's actually a lot harder to do that. But at the same time, with the type of injuries that I have and what's all gone on, and the manner in which how sick I am and the amount of injuries and what's all gone on, there would be no way for me to start over and get down. There would be no way for me to start over, and there would be no way for me to begin to rebuild working for somebody else in the manner in which I had built things, because I did work for other people a long time ago. There would be no way for me to be able to do that due to how extreme the injuries are and the nature of the condition and how we're forced to live. If I don't continue to build things forward the way I've already built them, then we do just lose everything, and then eventually we die. And that's the sick result of my mother, her crimes, the ongoing crimes of the people in large agencies that continue to help her, and what's all come out of this, because there's no way to go backwards and restart. There is still periods of incapacitation. I cannot punch a clock for somebody or tell somebody for sure I can be here or there on this day and time. I just have to be able to try to juggle everything that I do juggle, and then take the most urgent as it comes, where I am today, living like this. Instead of being stuck like this initially, now I'm just living like this. But again, I'm never going to be like this, like everybody else, regardless of how many more treatments I have or what goes on. But it's important that the treatments are maintained. I knew that from day one, and I did go. We went 14 months with no treatment from the time the injury became very extreme. And we were barely alive when we found the Oxford Center, which is the only reason we are still alive today. And I did spend $165,000 out of pocket to get us to where we are today. So if I had not done that and found the center, and then it took 2.5 years of everyday treatment, and another 1.5 years of 2 days a week, and then another 1.5 years of a day, a day a week, to maintain. That was just to maintain. We knew we needed further treatment going forward of daily treatment, but by then it was 100% self-pay all around. So there was no way to be able to continue to do that at that rate with how much I had spent, and all the other incidences that had occurred, all the other crimes and situations that came out of it. I knew that we needed daily treatment going forward in order to get us to more of a closer place to where we needed to be before we could drop down to maintenance treatments weekly, I'd say, or every other week once we get to a certain place. I knew that much more daily treatment was needed, but there was nothing I could do about it. So all along the way, from the time it was very extreme to the time I'd gotten us to where we were, daily to 2 days a week to 1 day a week, I knew if that stopped, if the flow of what I was building and how I maintained everything with my self-employment and how everything went, I knew that we would slowly slip away and we eventually just won't be alive anymore. I knew that would be the result. And I've told numerous people this along the way, and people seem to think that that's a joke. Or they don't understand why I can't go out and do this or that, or they just think I can be like a regular person and hang out and drink and do this and that. That's not possible. We don't get to live lives like that. We live modified lives. And then almost 2 years ago, the maintenance treatments did stop. And I knew if that happened, we were going to be swimming up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. And that's exactly what's happened ever since then. So since then, we live in a more continuous state of struggling and suffering. The exposures are harder we don't really clear them because there's not proper ongoing treatment to continue to clear what we're taking in. And it's a really serious issue. It's very life-threatening. So that was the point of me purchasing the home hyperbaric oxygen chamber in 2019 as a backup system. But the problem was my concentrator had broken about a year and a half ago. And so now I do have the rented concentrator that I've had for about 2.5 weeks now, where we've been treating daily since then. But we also went about 4 months with no treatment at all. After going about a year without the maintenance treatments as well. So we were so far gone, slid so far backwards by the time I got the home chamber up and running again. I know based on what I've been through the past 2.5 weeks, I was not far from not being here anymore all over again. And my son's a little ahead of me because he doesn't seem to get as re-injured as me. He's kept a little more safe. He doesn't have to go out into the world and make money the way I do. Or deal with the excessive problems that have come out of all this in the manner in which I do. So he's kept a little more safe. He's also younger, so his body heals a little quicker than mine. So there's numerous factors involved. But, we just started doing the daily treatments again. They are required to keep us alive. We cannot slide backwards and go without. That is a very serious issue. So going forward, that chamber that we have has to be maintained. It has to stay running. Either we have to buy a complete replacement concentrator for about $2,000, or we have to continue to rent the one from the facility that I've rented, and the monthly payment is that of about a car payment. Now, I have just recently paid off my car payment, so that does help the situation. However, I'm already under Chapter 13 bankruptcy due to all of the crimes, the longevity of the injury and all of the crimes going on at the same time and all of the attacks from all of these people and agencies. And most of these people and agencies don't know anything about me or my injury, and they're judging me on what I look like or whatever false information they've been told. So they don't live in reality about what we deal with and the extreme nature of our condition and how life-threatening it really is. So now, yes, I am going to have to maintain this payment or come up with the funds to buy a new concentrator. And what I did initially is I had put a GoFundMe up, but because of the manner in which I'm releasing the videos on YouTube, and because I have so many things going at one time, and in order to get people to understand my situation and all the different situations and crimes that are going on that are all tied together, yes, I have to break it down into all these categories in order to get people to understand what's all going on and how serious this situation really is. And in the amount I'm able to film, because there is still periods of incapacitation while I'm living in extreme chaos, dealing with the fallout of all these crimes and issues along the way, I am still taking the most urgent and juggling 2 to 4 times more than I can handle. I am significantly doing things. However, I still have to deal with the periods of incapacitation. I still live like this no matter what. I don't care what you saw me doing when with who. I still live this way regardless. These particles still flow through my brain and through my body, and depending on how much treatment I've had or if I'm able to maintain, that can become more than this. It can become closer to this. So it's really shitty living that way. So then I'm not able to film as many videos. And it is going to take me over 1,000 videos to get my entire story out there, to get everybody to understand how extreme it really is, because I haven't even gotten there yet. I'm really just scratching the surface. There's many more crimes I have not exposed yet, and I know I've exposed quite a few crimes and quite a few people by name, and I'm literally just getting started. There is many more. I am getting there. So there will be a lot more to come. I will be naming quite a few more people and a lot more crimes to come. It's just I have to do it in a certain order to get people to understand it. So living like this and doing these videos and doing all that in the manner in which I'm trying to release the videos, with YouTube, I have to have X amount of views in a certain time period to be able to keep the link in the description box for the GoFundMe. And because of everything I'm juggling and how sick I am and injured I am, and I'm not always releasing as many videos, then they take down me to be allowed to have that link in the description box for the GoFundMe. So that's why I don't always talk about it, and I'm always, got so many things in my mind. I do forget to say like, share, subscribe, or mention the GoFundMe, but a lot of these times YouTube takes it down from time to time, and then there'll be periods where I have a lot of views where it is allowed to be put in there. But what I think I'm going to do for the time being is just put my Cash App in the description box instead of the GoFundMe link, because that will be allowed to be in every video. And again, we need to maintain treatment to stay alive. Even if someone's only donating $2, that $2 makes a difference in what's going on with us and what has occurred and all the crimes that have come out of this. And the fact that my home had over 100 grand in damage almost 2 years ago, and it's still not completed, and I'm still working on that as well, being shorted by the insurance company. In the long run, I'll still be shorted and still not be able to receive the money from the people who caused the damage. It doesn't matter. Those people should have never been in my home in the first place. That's all pertaining to the crimes of my mother, the city of Flat Rock, the police department in Flat Rock, and Ford Motor Company here in Flat Rock. They're all involved in that. So due to everything that's gone on and the amount of crimes, that was the reason for the GoFundMe. We do need to maintain keeping the concentrator no matter what, in order to continue moving forward. I am slowly starting to be able to produce a little bit of money and get things rolling in this direction or that, but I cannot make them move any faster. So that's what I'll probably do, and just take the GoFundMe link out until the videos reach a certain degree where they're spreading like wildfire. Because what's going to happen is, once things start to come out and the crimes start to become well known, because this will eventually make nationwide news once I get everything out to a certain degree. Once that happens, I'm gonna end up, there's gonna be a lot of views, there's gonna be a lot of different people interested in the story. It is gonna blow at some point once I get a certain amount of information out there, and once arrests do start being made, because eventually they will, and it will be a lot of people, a lot of high-end officials with power. It's going to make national news. When that happens, the videos are going to take off, and then I'll be allowed to put the GoFundMe link in there. So until then, I think I'm just going to put the Cash App link in there. But that's another reason I have to break it down so far so that others can understand, because it is so extravagant and there is so many different subjects and crimes and agencies and people tied in with everything that's gone on, that there's no other way to get others to understand other than break it down to that degree. So once it all does blow, the views are it's all going to just take off at some point. But it is going to take me probably 500 to 1,000 videos or more before it even gets to that point. I'm shortly over 100 videos released right now. So I've got a ways to go. And again, I live chronically sick, permanently injured with 5 brain injuries, all untreated. So it's very hard to get everything that I have to take care of done. Live chronically sick, periods of incapacitation. I do lose days. I do, sometimes it's weeks, like how we went with no treatment for some months. We lost some time without being able to really do anything. So I'm trying to prevent that from ever happening again, to make sure we have the concentrator running in place. And eventually we are going to have to replace our home hyperbaric chamber and upgrade our system to the $35,000 system at some point, which would then last about 25 to 30 years. So in the end, that is something that is needed. However, I am still getting everything in order with my different forms of income from the fallout of all of these crimes and ongoing issues that are still going on today. And now, because of the longevity of my injury, the long-term manipulation of different individuals and family members who are also very jealous and envious of me because I've surpassed the level that they're all on in life a very long time ago, long before my injury, that these people are all very jealous and envious, and they then manipulate my children, which is why my youngest is not allowed around a lot of these people. So my older two children are very heavily manipulated, which has caused more problems in different directions as well. So there's always fallout with each one of my children. My youngest, the fallout is more due to the injury and what we have to deal with in that department in our modified lives. But the older two children, there is manipulation, some heavy manipulation, jealousy and envy going on there as well, mixed with the crimes. So those are other issues that have to be dealt with on top of my mother's ongoing crimes and the crimes of the large agencies and people she uses to help her commit these crimes against me, while I'm chronically sick and injured, while all of this is going on. And even if somebody just has one brain injury, it takes them 5 to 10 times longer to complete one task or do anything with one brain injury, let alone 5, and severe carbon monoxide poisoning, all untreated properly. So with where I'm at, it's my circumstances are very extreme, and the only reason I am able to do these things, again, is because of my previous life's work prior to the injury, the amount of time and money I had made all prior to that, and the fact that I'm self-employed, self-made, self-built, which is also part of the jealousy and envy from all of these angles. So everything ties together, like I said. So you'd have to kind of watch the intro videos, watch everything in order, then kind of click about throughout the different titles of the videos to get a really good idea of what's going on here. But once I get things out to a certain degree, you'll totally understand why I had to break it down so far and the extreme nature of everything once I get to that point, because I'm still a ways away from that. So the other thing I want to talk about is I will talk about the extreme part of the injury in its own section. I have not gotten there yet, but I just wanted to show with the examples of the bottles today, the difference in what had gone on and how long it went on like that, to maybe give people an idea until I get to that section of the videos, because it was very extreme. Where my life is today, none of what I'm doing today was able to be done for the first 3.5 years at all, or a little bit longer. I will get to all that in its own, its own playlist of videos. Like I said, it is important that we continue to maintain treatment. That is the key. Now that we're back up and we're doing it again, we cannot be left without treatment. And now with the center permanently closed, there's no other way to receive treatment. We cannot receive treatment within the hospital system whatsoever due to the heavily falsified medical records, the crimes of my mother, and the crimes of Beaumont Hospital. The systems are all tied together. The other hospitals still see the notes. It's all tied together. So there's an issue with that. We do have to maintain our chamber at home and or eventually replace it and upgrade our chamber. That is going to be the best way for us to stay alive and move forward with our lives and keep everything running. Now, like I said, there's fallout with each one of my children due to the crimes and manipulation and the situation and how long my injury went on for. That's a part of it. And then because of these other crimes and these other large agencies and people involved in them, that also plays a role in with the different issues with all of my children, because each one, it's a different issue. They're a different set of issues. And on top of that, my mother's crimes are all different crimes, and numerous of them using numerous large agencies and people. So this is all going on at one time while I'm living sick like this, and injured and very limited in a modified life. It is hard to keep everything running in the manner in which I have built everything. But again, there's no other way out. I can't restart. I can't rebuild from nothing how I did all those other times. My mother had wiped me out down to nothing 3 solid times, 4 if you count the Chapter 13 bankruptcy this time around. I don't have the ability to rebuild in the manner in which I always did prior to my injury, because I was always very healthy. My human body and what it's all been through in my brain and everything that's happened, there's no way for me to rebuild in that manner and start over and work for somebody else to get to where I am today. The only way out is to continue running things in the manner in which I've built them and move forward from there. So that is still going on. Small steps are being made. The progress is being made. It's just I can't make it move any faster. So that is part of the problem there. But again, it ties back to the crimes. Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, like I said, I'm juggling a lot of things. I'm juggling many things. And I am juggling more things than somebody without an injury would generally be juggling in their life in general. So that's because I was a very high functioning individual prior to my injury. And the fact that I have done all of those treatments, hundreds of thousands of dollars in treatments, and have my own chamber, that is the reason I am able to continue to make all of that happen. However, if I do too much, which happens more likely than I'd like to, that does also wipe me out due to the nature of my condition and the amount of brain injuries. It's all very taxing. It's taxing on the brain, it's taxing on my system, and then especially if I have any re-exposures or re-injuries during any of this, it does wipe me out, and then I lose time as well. So and without proper medical oversight, because really what it is I'm being oversaw by my primary doctor, and Charmaine is the mental health professional involved, but she's actually involved to document the ongoing crimes and has been for over 5 years now. And it was also because I was near death, not knowing if I was going to live. She sees there is a very severe physical medical condition and numerous injuries that has led to why everything is where it is, and the amount of crimes and individuals involved and everyone around me's behavior. So it is technically 2 reasons, but at no time have I ever had a mental disorder. At no time was I ever diagnosed with one, not even as a teenager. Those records are false if my mother is showing people those. I believe she told people I was depressed at some point. At no time have I ever been diagnosed with depression properly, or was I ever a part of the medical system or mental health system. At no time did I ever have time to be depressed. I was always on my hustle, chasing the bag from a very young age, around age 11 or 12, and kept building and building and building at a very rapid rate. And even today, when people see me today, they mistake my physical brain injuries, my physical systemic injuries, as some type of mental disorder or drug problem or depression, and that's not at all what's going on. I live in severe pain, waxing and waning pain, and other symptoms and suffering that wax and wane all day, every day, with periods of incapacitation due to the physical injuries and limitations because of the brain injuries. So at no time have I ever been diagnosed with depression, and no time have I ever had time to be depressed. So that is still the case today. I don't even have an ounce of depression. That there's not even room for that in my life. There never has been, never will be. And due to how hard I've worked and what I've built, again, there wouldn't be room for that. And not even 1% of that exists. So I know there's people who do ride on those delusions. That is completely false. And the mental health professional is involved, again, specifically to document these crimes and to keep documenting the injury that I've been through, what I've been through and everything. And due to the nature of the crimes and the injury, there does need to be some secondary oversight regarding that, because it was not treated properly, still not being treated properly. So beyond the backup of my primary doctor, she's kind of secondary in that boat as well. Because it needs more than one person's oversight. Even though there's a couple people at my primary doctor's office, it needs a second facility oversight. So that's kind of why she's going to stay involved as well. Although the main reason is the ongoing crimes and the need for her to oversee all that and document all of that, because it plays a role in how we're going to be able to prove these crimes in the long run once arrests are made. She has seen a lot of this happen before her own eyes. This is not me telling her. Some of it is. But she knows that I'm not making any of this up, and my life really is that extravagant. She has seen a lot of this with her own eyes as well. Or people call her and tell on themselves. I've seen that happen too. So the way others perceive things, part of the reason they're not perceiving things properly is because, again, when my injury was extreme the first 3.5 years, no one saw me. I was incapacitated inside my home the majority of that time, unable to go anywhere or do anything. So when people, from that 3.5 year point to today, so now we're 3.5 more years from that day, and going forward, nobody's seen what I went through initially to even get to where I am today, or where I've been the last 3.5 years, You know, because before I'd crossed any thresholds, it was very extreme, just 100% incapacitated the majority of that time. And nobody has seen what we've been through, what my son and I have been through, the portions that I've been through, because mine's a little more extreme than his. No one has seen any of that to even understand what I've been through, to see where I got myself to, and why the importance of the treatments has to be maintained, and what the actual problem is, and why we can't have exposures to things and particles loading into our system at any time going forward, and what that's all about. People don't understand that because no one's seen the first 3.5 years to even understand where I'd been the second 3.5 years, and then where I'll be going forward from here. No one ever seen any of that, or what's happened or come out of that, to understand it to an extreme degree. You know, everybody underestimates the severity of the injury or what I've been through, or because what you've seen me do in the last 3.5 years from time to time, or what you think you see, that's not reality. And a lot of those people who are making assumptions, again, have been told false information. So there's numerous problems with that, and there's a lot of ups and downs. It's not positive movement forward. And without the ongoing treatments, there's no way to, you know, without the treatments, there's no way to continue moving forward either. We can't just go without treatment. There's no positive movement forward without maintaining treatments and without daily treatment to continue to move forward. So there's numerous issues with that. There is many downs as well. Once there's a significant re-exposure or re-injury, I take many steps backwards and then still have to rebuild very, very slowly with the daily treatment to get back to where I was before each re-injury or re-exposure. So that's another issue. And then when that happens, again, nobody sees me. I become homebound and incapacitated. Now, there was a period of time where I did have to go to Ohio and stay in my home in Ohio, and I was on the run for my life during the 2021 Ford gas spill. And that was it was like about a 1.5 year period, but that was a whole other time in my life that's not my life at all, and how it was being ran, or any of what was actually going on in my life, or what I have running or building. None of that was being incorporated during that. It was just extreme chaos, and there was an extreme disruption of everything I had going on, and an extreme disruption of my rest, recovery, and treatment during that time as well. So there's numerous issues with that, or people who saw that part of my life. You know, there's a lot of people and agencies involved in all of this. They will be going to prison. I will be naming a lot more people and a lot more agencies here very soon. It's just going to take me some time to get these videos out step by step, or it's not going to make sense to everybody. So that's what I'm working on currently. I know I've been kind of slow at releasing the videos, but again, it's because I'm juggling so many things, and I am that chronically sick and that much injured. And I am still working on many things at one time, so I am just trying to take the most urgent. And again, I have no support system. I've always walked my path alone for the most part. It's just I became very severely injured, and it became much, much harder to do. Now, there is people at a distance somewhat, but for the most part, I walk alone, and I continue to do so, and that's the most trusted way to continue to move forward, especially due to all the crimes, the manipulation, and everything I've been through. It's criminal harassment. This is criminal harassment, criminal defamation of character, criminal slander, along with all the other crimes involved. And you can view some of those videos on that as well, where I read the list of crimes that my mother's gotten away with. That's just her crimes. That's not including the large agencies and other people she's used. So yeah, that's what's going on. That's why it's taking me so long in between videos recently, because I do have a lot of things running. I am going to do my best to get as many out as I can as I continue to work in the background on all of these matters. So I just wanted to give an update to everybody and why it's taken me so long to do all this, and why you haven't seen another video. And there is more to come. I am ordering more police reports and more footage, more body cam footage. I am working on that as well. The problem is it's been quite costly because there's just so much of it. But I am getting there, one step at a time. I can't make things move any faster. That's what I've been doing. That's what I'm working on. That's what I'm going to continue to do. And I will not be stopping until arrests are made. And my mother's, she's the top individual, but I will not be stopping until there are the proper amount of arrests are made and those people are behind bars. So I will be back with another one. Thanks. Bye.